Hello, good morning. I'm Koen Eeckhoudt, working for Checkpoint, and today I would like to talk to you on cloud security in a multi-cloud era. So, first of all, the agenda for today, very briefly, I would like to briefly talk to you on a few key pillars when you are designing a cloud environment. After this, I would like to take you through the most important findings of our cloud security report that we did in 2020. And I will attach to this a few fairy tales and try to make you remember some of the most important takeaways for this presentation. So without any further ado, maybe in 2 words, who is Checkpoint? For those who don't know us, we've been in cybersecurity for 27 years, and only in cybersecurity. We have over 100,000 customers in more than 88 countries, 6,200 partners that are working for us, and we are there's more than 5,200 of us worldwide. That being said, first of all, a few words on designing a cloud environment. We start off with one of the first pillars, that is reliability. We want to make sure that when we are designing a cloud environment, we do it in a reliable way. We want recovery to be instant. We want to be sure that workload scaling goes as it should, both up and down. We want to make sure that when we build an environment, we have as small a blast radius as possible for any of our components. This all relates back to the part that it needs to be very reliable, of course. Next to this, what we saw from the questionnaire on cloud security is that cost is still a bit of a burden for a lot of customers and a bit of a barrier that they need to go through. So make sure when designing the cloud environment that you also take in mind the cost optimization. Operational excellence is something that we mean make sure that you build for failure. It sounds a bit strange, but make sure that when you build your environment, that when you build your application, that it can fail. Make sure that you can improve based on those events, and make sure that you don't use any big servers that you cannot miss at all. So try to go to an approach where you have your infrastructure as much as possible as code instead of having to do manual labor each and time again, so that the operational part of things is done in a decent way. Make sure that you look at the cloud native possibilities when you are looking for performance. When we are talking about cloud environments, very often we talk about microservices. We talk about serverless environments, we talk about containerized applications, etc. Make use of those possibilities that are there in the cloud. They are there, the cloud providers are delivering them for you, so make sure that you use them. Last and certainly not least, and the main part of the presentation, is to make it secure. So when we are talking about security, I would like to go through a few of the key findings on our cloud security report that was done in 2020, so I do not need to bore you with what COVID did in accelerating the shift for the remote workforce. I'm sure you've heard it enough by now. We have asked over 650 cybersecurity professionals from both management and all the other parts of the companies. We have talked to not only IT security, but we've also talked to DevOps, to SecOps. We've talked to government customers, tech companies, finance companies, so the whole bunch. All to say that this is not just a club of Fortune 500 WizKids that responded to our questions. The very first number that I'd like to go through with you, and this is one that we should really remember and take into account, is that 3 out of 4 organizations are very concerned when we talk about cloud security, meaning that if you ask 100 organizations, the vast majority of them will respond that they are very concerned or even extremely concerned with security part of things. This is an increase from what we saw last year. So the 75% is gaining traction. I'm assuming that it will be bigger next year as well. What are the biggest concerns when we are talking about cloud security? So when we ask the companies, they came back to us with a blistering 69% that is concerned with data loss or data leakage. We have 2 out of 3 that are taking into consideration the data privacy as their biggest concern, the fact that confidential information is stored in cloud environments. We dropped down to under half that is actually a bit concerned on accidental exposure of credentials, etc. We see that the legal and regulatory compliancy is also a concern, also gaining traction, but still not the biggest one. So it's quite important to know that the cloud vendors and the companies that are using the clouds, there is a shared responsibility model, as you all know. So please be aware that you as a company, you are ultimately responsible for the data security and not the cloud provider itself. So the concerns are there. When being asked about the biggest security threats, we see that 7 out of 10, or 68%, is mentioning misconfiguration or wrong setup of the cloud platform as the biggest one. This was in last year's survey only in 3rd place. So people are really beginning to learn. People are getting used to making sure that the configuration is one of the most important things that needs to be in order. 58%, almost 6 out of 10, see the unauthorized access to their cloud environment as the biggest cloud security threat. And only 52%, I say only because this is a number that we really need to take into consideration as well, is mentioning insecure interfaces or open APIs as the biggest security threat. Not on the slides, but also of importance are DDoS attacks, the fact that companies have to do with malicious insiders. These are all things that are seen as the biggest security threats. So when we asked companies about their traditional security tools or appliances, 82%, which is a huge number, told us that traditional network security tools do not or only limited function in their cloud environment. So that's less than 1 in 5 that is currently using their normal traditional, let's say, security solutions, and that have all the functionality that they need in the cloud. So a number to keep in mind as well. The argument is there quite often that the built-in tools are sufficient. This is true sometimes. However, the majority of companies that we speak to, that we have questioned, show us that they are actually deploying in 2 or more public cloud environments, meaning that a built-in tool from one cloud environment will probably not cut it. When asking customers on what security tools they are using today, they are talking about access control, 69%. Makes me wonder a little bit what the other 31% are doing, but that's another story. Only 53% talk about antivirus, anti-malware, or ATP, advanced threat protection, as security tools that they are using. And even less than half of the people that we talk to are using some form of multi-factor authentication. Also, something that we asked about was application-specific protection, like web application firewalls. Also there we saw that less than half is using this type of security solution, which is quite concerning because 52%, more than half, consider the risk of a security breach in their public cloud environment higher or much higher than what they are used to protecting their on-premise environment. So, that being said, these numbers in mind, I would like to talk to you on a few takeaways based on children's stories. Why this way? Because it's easy to remember, and actually we learned quite a lot in kindergarten, stuff that we shouldn't really forget. So I will start off by giving 2 examples from the 3 Little Pigs. We know that we needed to build a house in the story, and that the 3 Little Pigs were discussing on whether they should use straw or wood or bricks. And the goal, of course, is to make sure that the wolf doesn't blow it down in the first passage right away. First takeaway from this presentation that I would really like you to remember is to plan properly. Make sure that you plan in a decent way. Make sure that you consult with somebody who is a trusted cloud security person. Make sure that you talk to someone who does it day in, day out. Make sure you benefit from the industry best practices that are already there. No need to invent the wheel again. They are already there. And make sure in the planning phase that you architect your cloud security in such a way that it is there from the beginning. It will save you a lot of time and probably also money in the end. Another takeaway from the Three Little Pigs is that at a point in time in the story, they agreed, okay, we shall put a brick house, but we kind of forgot about the windows or the chimney, meaning that in a cloud environment as well, make sure that you protect all of your parameters. Make sure that you don't do just the old-fashioned way of doing, where it was enough to protect your perimeter, and if you could keep the bad guys out, that was rather sufficient. Today, you really need to think about each of your services. You need to think about each of your roles. You need to think about each of your workloads, because all of them are a potential way of breaching your perimeter as such. In Snow White, kind of really like this one because we take away from the evil person. We have a wicked queen that sees everything through the magical mirror, right? No, not right. She saw almost everything, and what we mean with this is that the visibility in your cloud environment is really key, because of the simple fact that there is no way to protect what is invisible. That doesn't mean that a human being needs to see everything, but you need tooling in place that is able to see what's going on in your cloud environment, across your different cloud environments, etc. Try to eliminate your blind spots. Make sure that you work with a well-integrated cloud security solution that has broad capabilities and not just point solutions as such. Second to last one, Little Red Riding Hood, where we all know that she meets someone who looks like grandma and who sounds like grandma, but all of a sudden there are huge teeth that come into play, meaning that we should remember that you should not trust anything or nobody. We need to adopt a zero-trust security solution, or not as such a solution, but a mindset. Make sure that you do not trust any network traffic that you don't need to trust. Same goes for your users, your devices, your data, your workloads. Make sure that you keep in mind that you cannot or should not trust anything. The last story that I wanted to point out was what happens with Mickey and his apprenticeship in the Source Apprentice. So for those who don't know it, he's a student magician, and he practices his skills on brooms that are starting to clean the house, and all goes well up until the point that it doesn't go well anymore, and they are really starting to spoil the whole thing, even almost drowning poor Mickey in the end. So coming back to what I already said, we mean with this that you choose a solution that has a broad capability set. Make sure that you don't just use point solutions, that you don't use X for this and Y for that, because you are going to avoid a lot of complexity and integration issues if you don't. If you go for the disparate solutions, the point solutions, quite often they don't work well together. And not only that, but there's always the issue of your staff that needs training, the extra maintenance overhead that is there, if you are looking at solutions that are working separately and not working together as they should. I want to briefly take a moment to explain you our CloudGuard platform from Checkpoint. I don't want to go too much in detail because we don't have the time for this, but please be aware that we can help you with all of the issues that I just mentioned. We have cloud native security. We have our known advanced threat prevention that we can deploy in any of the public or private cloud solutions. We have the security posture management, where we will take a look at what is going on in your cloud environment. We will test against either your own rules, or we will test against the industry standards that I already mentioned. We will make sure in a very, very visible way that you have full visibility on what's going on in your network. Aside from this, as I already mentioned, we do this across all of your assets and across all of your workloads. So we're not limited to one cloud environment or the other. We do it across all of them. We can protect your serverless environments, your containerized environment, etc., etc. So my asking to you is that you contact us if there is anything that you recognize in one of the previous slides, and we will be very grateful and we will be happy to help you. With this, I would like to thank you and really ask you to think before you act. Make sure that you know that you are not the only one at all who is concerned about cloud security in the different cloud environments. And if all goes well, try to remember my different stories so that you can make sure that you keep your cloud environment as safe as possible. I thank you very much.